So we're continuing to think about how we provide pastoral care, and particularly thinking about pastoral counselling. And last time we saw that the objective of Christian counselling, of biblical counselling, is not merely to provide comfort, and in that sense, it's not therapeutic in the sense of come to us for emotional healing, if you like, although healing of the emotions may be a big part of it, but rather we're concerned to help people not just survive through life circumstances, but actually to thrive in them. And we define thriving in life circumstances as being about learning to be holy, learning to be godly in our circumstances, even and especially when those circumstances are trying, when they involve persecution or suffering. And so that's one way in which we mark out Christian counselling from other forms of counselling. But it's also helpful to say that there are other differences as well. And so it's helpful, if you want to be an effective counsellor, to have some understanding of the different models and different approaches to counselling and to therapy, and where they're coming from. And one of the things it's worth being aware of is that they are not ideologically neutral. That actually there's a philosophy, there's an ideology behind most of those approaches. And I'm not saying that as a negative thing, but rather that when someone is telling you this is how I'm going to approach your problems, that comes out of an understanding both of what the purpose of helping you is, which we've been talking about, but also what is the root cause of your problems, your challenges, the things that you're looking for help with. And that's helpful because it means that when we're aware of that, it means that we can be discerning as we look to these different models and approaches to see whether they can be used and how they can be used by us, appropriated, if you like, for use in Christian counselling. And what I would say is that there are some things that I've made use of from other counselling theories, and there are things that I haven't made use of or wouldn't go anywhere near when I've got a sense of what the background, what the ideology, what the worldview is that shapes that approach. That you'll be familiar with the way that Carl Jung was interested in dreams, that there's a sort of a pseudo-spirituality about that. Or how Freud basically saw everything as down to this complex pseudo-sexual relationship and tension between a son and his mum and his dad, the old Oedipus complex sort of thing. And you can see there that they are beginning to say this is the root problem. But you might also look and see how transactional analysis is based on a belief that the issue is about both how we perceive ourselves and so how we act in relationship to other people. So that in that kind of approach, there's a belief that we play games with others, that we adopt roles in our relationships. And then you've got something like CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy. And CBT, I've actually found really helpful as a kind of a framework for looking at how we counsel and how we help, because it starts on the premise that we are holistic people who think, who feel, who act. And so CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, starts on the basis that how we feel is shaped by what we think, what we believe, and how we act. In fact, all of those are interrelated, so our feelings can affect our behaviours, our actions, our physiological state can also affect how we think. And as a Christian, you would be saying, well, there's definitely some truth in that, isn't there? What we believe does affect how we live, affects our behaviour. And we may have observed and seen actually how people can allow their feelings and also their behaviours, their actions as well, to start to shape their beliefs, that they believe things that excuse their behaviours. But also how we can miss out on some very practical and simple things, that when somebody is struggling in faith, struggling in belief, and we've not paid attention to just very basic things. You're struggling with doubt, but is that real loss of faith? Or is it because you are lacking sleep and food and energy? Because you're suffering from problems with your blood pressure or whatever, things that are giving anxiety. Apparently, a friend of mine tells the story of someone who was having a terrible crisis of faith and no one knew what to do. He was a medic and he spotted that the person was anemic. Actually getting their bloods right helped them get their thinking on track as well and their believing on track as well. So there are things that we can learn, not just from techniques, but actually getting an understanding of what the theory is, what the root cause is that these approaches have. But as I said, there's a difference between a Christian approach and a secular approach. You see, all these secular approaches have something in common. They think that the problem is purely to do with us and our relationship to others. And at that point you realise that they have got half the truth, that they've missed out on something very important. Because we as Christians want to say, yes, you need to look at yourself, yes, you need to look at your relationship to others, but our primary concern is, what is your relationship with God like? And that is the starting point, the root issue. And the thing that we're concerned with, both in terms of understanding the root of problems, but also understanding the goal of pastoral care and counselling. That our priority is to make sure that that person's relationship with God is on track, because that is the root cause, the relationship is off track. But also, it's coming back to the very purpose of living, of existing, of getting through these struggles, of thriving and not just surviving, because we were made for God, and we find our life and meaning and identity and hope and purpose in Him alone. So what I'd encourage you to do is actually to do a bit of a survey, do a bit of reading, find out about some of the different approaches to counselling and therapy, and see if you can identify what's the sort of the basic ideology here. What do they see to be the root problem? And consider, are there things that you can identify with, examples of common grace and general revelation where you think actually they're onto something, they're getting somewhere towards it, but also how does it fall short from the gospel message? Thanks for joining in.